Welcome back, South Africa, and we are still chilling with Ike. In today's conversation, on the lighter side of politics, we'll be discussing issues such as sexism, feminism, liberalism, amongst many others, which are quite interesting. And the youth and citizens of South Africa are, leaning towards these days. Okay, so Ike, the first thing I want to ask you is, what's your opinion on sexism? What do you think sexism is, and what are your thoughts on how it's impacting society today in any way, shape, or form?
Look, we come a long way, and questions such as is sexism, it's attached with negative connotation, which is bad. It's the same as racism. You know, any form of discrimination shouldn't be tolerated. But concepts such as sexism, these are concepts that came with the emancipation of Europe. When Europe started to see the light during the Enlightenment age, that's when you had concepts such as sexism. Because if you remember, Africans, they always believed in the art, the laws of balance. The Japanese or Asians say the yin and the yang. If there's a god, there's a goddess. Each and every sector of society, they had a role to play. I'm not saying that everything was glorious in ancient Africa, but there was always that balance. So most of these concepts, they came from Europe, because Europe was operating at a deficit or had so many defects, especially coming out of the Dark Ages, where they locked the world for 1,000 years, you know, pushing back on civilization. Yeah.
That's what you think of it, hey? And then, how then would you say it plays a role in feminism? And what are your thoughts on feminism as a whole?
Look, feminism, it's traced back from Europe after the Dark Ages. Europe in the 1500s or late 1400s, they started going out of the Dark Ages. I mean, you remember the Dark Ages, it is Rome. They had a disinformation campaign where they were eliminating every book, every civilization, terming it paganism, because they were trying to kill evidence of what they were stolen. What has been reproduced in the Bible was actually African. So they locked the world into the Dark Ages. So when you talk of feminism, it has to do with patriarchy. It's a counter to patriarchy in Europe. European men, they believe in patriarchy. If you come to South Africa, since we're colonized by the British Empire and later the Afrikaners, they still believed in that. That's why if you can go back to the Zulu codes of law, you go to Roman Dutch law, where women were not emancipated, they were minors. They could not do anything without the permission of their husband. It is not African or Africans who introduced that. It's Europeans like Poshevstin, your Vasco da Gamas who came here, they introduced those concepts. Your Kretschmer, coming here to South Africa, introducing that Roman Dutch law, which was patriarchal. But Africans, they had queens, like Bomujaj, Bomantantisi, Boquin Zenga, who led generals to war. So Africans believed in different roles. So we never had the need for feminism, because women were not oppressed. They had different roles. I mean, there are queen mothers who played very crucial roles, even as late as the 1800s. Africans didn't have a term for teenage pregnancy prior to the arrival of the Europeans. They didn't have a term for orphanage homes, because a child belonged to the village, belonged to a family. We didn't have old age homes, because Africans didn't throw their old people away. Lots of the misnomers that are happening today, they came after the arrival of the Europeans. Even homophobia is not known, in ancient Africa prior to us mixing with Europeans.
Do you think it's not known because it was normal for people to be homosexual during African times before the involvement of Europeans?
I wouldn't say normal, but Africans are not known for witchcraft. Not, I want to say witch hunt, like it happened in Europe. There were witch hunts. There were witch hunts in America where they were hunting for witch. They tried to write that into our history where they said, Ushaka Kasenzanga Corner trapped the Isanusis, trapped the traditional healers of the day, and those, who couldn't come up with genuine prophecies, they were tortured. There is no history of such or backup of such. I don't know, of any, beside what the Europeans, they've taught about our people. Because remember, it's after Bantu education and the so-called royal education where it was decided that they must make the African history as bloody as possible, make it bloody, make African chiefs to look bad, to justify colonialism. And all those who resist, like Idi Amin, be termed devils. The Europeans, anything that resists against European oppression, expansionism, they call it the devil. Like they've, character assassinated Saddam Hussein, Colonel Gaddafi, Hugo Chavez. In Cuba, they found Fidel Castro. They assassinate everyone that who disagrees with them or everyone who sees their nonsense. Even now, if you raise a hand and say, you know what, I have a question with a so-called pandemic now, you'll be assassinated, you'll be called a buffoon, you'll be called a denialist. They've got all these beautiful terms, to call you a revisionist. They will call you a conspiracy theorist. That's how they operate. They'll call you all these type of names, because you see their nonsense.
Right. Before we digress, I'd like to bring us back to the topic of feminism. When some of the social media posts that you post, you've got this notion where you say, or you insist or emphasize on the idea that today's feminists direct most of their ammunition towards black men. I feel like this is slightly untrue, if not inaccurate, because I see, and the general world sees, feminism attacking white people all the time. I mean, if you can look at the Me Too movement, many giants who were white have fallen, such as Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein. Every white or every man that has used masculinity, to his advantage to abuse women in any way, shape, or form has been punished, regardless of race. Bill Cosby versus Weinstein. There's that guy. He used to be a comedian on Mad Men. He's also a white guy. He used to masturbate in front of actresses that he's hired. That guy also felt the arm of the law. There's a long list of them. Are you blind to this, or are you just that ignorant? What happened?
Let me say this about a Me Too movement as a feminist movement. I wouldn't be so sure, but I will tell you this. Here we are marching into the gray areas. If you can check the emphasis, your Abby Weinstein, people who collaborated with him, your Bill Clintons, your Donald Trumps, and other billionaires, they're still around doing the same thing. Nobody's chasing after them. It seems as if Weinstein was the fall guy because something had to be done. A couple of number of people, they have raised issues, and it comes at the footsteps when you've got Bill Cosby, you've got R. Kelly. So now to level the playing field so that it's not seen as if only blacks are attacked, they found a fall guy. Because in the past, it has always been blacks who've been character assassinated in sports, black people trying to emancipate other black people, they've been character assassinated, or black people who are doing well, setting an exemplary for other black people. So now the Me Too it came in there. Look, I don't dismiss, there are real genuine cases, but the coincidence, it's amazing. But I can tell you again, and how this Me Too came. It came as well when there was this issue about Black Lives Matter. And then the issue of Black Lives was, clouded with gay rights, Me Too. Always when black people are coming out and say you are being killed, their issues always, lumped with other issues, gender rights, gays, women, white, and then all of a sudden it was brown coffee. It's now cappuccino, white. So, but I can tell you for a fact, can I continue on the question of feminism? As I said, that in Africa there was no role or no need for feminism. Isn't it amazing that Me Too as it is, you never hear white females calling their men trash. It is black females calling black females trash. And if we must agree, me and you, and say this is a white man's world, then the white man owns slavery, colonialism, barbarism, genocide, apartheid. White man owns all those things, racism such as sexism, stuff such as chauvinism, sexism, colorism. So therefore, a black man is also a victim of that. But you'll never hear black females powerful like your Oprah Winfrey, fighting white men, saying white men at work, they created this, inequalities. Because remember, black people or black men, a black man doesn't have power. Black people don't have power to implement sexism at work, to implement the inequalities. We are also victims as black people. We are also looking for employment from white people. It is white people who shift us around and pit us against each other. Yet, I would love to hear more voices from black feminists attacking the number one perpetrator, because this is a white man's world. A black man is only reacting. As much as I can say that a black man cannot be a racist, he's only reacting to racism. At best, he can be a bigot.
Okay, Ike, just because you're reacting to something doesn't make you not guilty of it. Do you understand me? Somebody is trying to kill you. You shoot the person, Yes, it was self-defense, but will you not be sentenced as a killer as well?
There are bounds and limits, to self-defense. Sometimes self-defense, it is a correct thing. And I'm not saying that black people or black men abusing black females, they are right. There are those people who are evil. We should condemn them all the time. Even in ancient time, there were those people who were bad. I'm not saying that it was all, hunky-dory. There were black people, black men in particular, abusing other women who are black. We must condemn that. But I'm saying in general, because I'm speaking in general, I'm not talking in exceptions or isolated incidences. I'm saying that the number one perpetrator of these crimes globally, if you can check in the last 500 years, white man has created havoc. He's disagreeable everywhere in Australia. Wherever they found black people in America, the indigenous black people killed, raped. That is highest form of sexism, inequalities, taken to slavery, their land taken in Australia, in America, in India, in China, in ancient Russia itself, black people have been displaced. And whenever a nation has been conquered, its woman folk, it's abused, raped, oppressed. That's what has happened up to so far.
All right, without dwelling too much on the issue of feminism, let's move on to liberalism. What are your thoughts on liberalism, Ike?
Look, liberalism, the same as, your feminism, your other rights that are lumped with liberalism because it is an umbrella body, which encompasses all these isms, like your gay rights, pro-choice, women rights, everything can be lumped, or most of the things can be lumped under liberalism, as the term says. It comes from the word liberal, as opposed to the orthodox, because liberalism is reacting to the orthodox, or if I were to be in particular, or to be particular, rather, to Rome, because you remember that Rome had a tight grip in Europe of everything, had a monopoly of everything, religion, economy. So the liberals were reacting to that. If you trace it back from the Martin Luther, going astray, the Anglican Church, deviating from your normal practice of Rome. So it's, traces of that, and it became worse or more prevalent in the Enlightenment era or Enlightenment age. So I have nothing against liberalism, but there are certain things that they need to be guided, because you need to be guided against, because look, freedom has limits. Your freedom must not tamper with your neighbor's freedom. So it has limits. As much as you've got a right to be liberal, you must also respect my space. If someone says, I am this, I am gay, I have no problem. As long as you're exercising your rights, it's not, encroaching on my rights. I am okay with that. But the problem starts when you want to impose on the next person to say you ought to follow, the rules as I see them. Then it becomes a problem.
Which instances do you feel as though you were forced or encouraged to follow a different set of beliefs than you believe, Ike?
Look, it is amazing, as they say that we are always caught in a cycle as people. Sometimes you start from oppression, and we seek to have our space, our freedom. The freer we become, we evolve into oppression again. Like now, if you check in the context of South Africa, coming from apartheid, we're fighting for freedom of the press, the arts. That's part of liberalism. Freedom. Some people talk of, border control. I wouldn't go that much. We need to be free, and we fought for those things. And the freer we became, and then we evolved into something else, like we've seen with the so-called pandemic, where we're all supposed to vaccinate. We're all putting masks, and it didn't make sense. You're putting masks to protect yourself against an illness that had 99% failure rate, and we're all putting masks. And you say, but why am I putting a mask if I'm still injected or vaccinated? They say, no, you're not protecting yourself, you're protecting the other person. No, you're not. There was that confusion. Everybody was going mad. And when you were liberal at that time, saying, hold on a minute, I need to question this. It doesn't make sense. Why can't I buy nappies during the lockdowns? You say, no. In the name of pandemic, that liberalism, was crushed during the pandemic. So we always move in circles. We want freedom. When we are free, we want to go back to
chains.
To the chains again.
I hear that, Ike. In the spirit of liberalism, now you've known to be quite controversial in your career.
Jesus Christ was controversial. Progressive people are controversial. Malcolm X was controversial. It means you must be controversial to win. I mean, you check inventors. Elon Musk is controversial. Who's not controversial?
That's a game changer. I like that. So, in the spirit of that, we are moving on to the topic of homosexuality. Ike, what are your thoughts on homosexuality?
As I said earlier on, if someone says I'm gay and proud, that's your pride. have nothing to do with you. Whatever that happens, in your space, I have no issues. The only time I have a problem with gay rights, I have a problem with gay movements. I distinguish between gay movements and gay people. Because here's my problem. Gay people, the only time you see them in public is when they speak on gay rights, when they speak about themselves. They never participate on issues that are greater than themselves or issues that are affecting all of us, like apartheid. You don't have a view or a gay view on education, free education, on apartheid itself, on racism, equality. And I know that they will say, no, gays were there in all these struggles, in all these challenges that are facing society. Gays are there, but they are there as individuals, not as a movement. But if I can check other groupings like women, they are there not only as women talking for women's rights. They are there. You'll find mothers saying we are concerned about drugs. We are concerned about children who are dying in our roads. There's mothers, to offer counseling to other mothers who've lost children in gangsterism. There were church leaders against apartheid. They did not only speak about Christ. Church leaders who spoke on the social ills of the society. Youth, there were youth organizations speaking on apartheid, youth organizations speaking on poverty, youth organizations talking on unemployment. But when it comes to gay, the only time they speak is like, my right, I. And then you see gay parades, people drinking and, nudity. It's like, I'm not sure whether the priorities about that, but each time I see gay people, even the prominent gay people on TV, they're always saying nothing. They're always, posting, saying unintelligent things on TV or on the radios. I have a problem with that. I wish that they can express themselves more on issues that are affecting us. Like now, what is the gay movement saying on our infrastructure being destroyed by foreigners who are here? You have no view. The only time you'll see them is when I'm gay. And then you check, they are loud when it comes to me, as a gay man. But when it comes to things that affect us all, dead quiet, like during apartheid, they only emerge now, saying, hey guys, remember me after we fought so much. And I did not see them. I can tell they were youth. They were Muslims against apartheid. They were Anglicans, Catholic, Zionist. When I say Zionist, I mean like African Zionist churches against apartheid. They were artists against apartheid. Where were gay right movements? They only came after the fact. So therefore, I don't recognize them as gay movements. As individual, if you're gay, then it's fine, you're a brother. And yeah, so that is that. For me, yeah, you can call yourself whatever, transsexual and LGBTI. It's okay. It's okay. Call yourself whatever that you want to call yourself. And I have an opinion also on many issues, on gay rights, but I'll reserve my opinion. There's so many issues, on transsexuals, transgenders, playing sport with women. So many issues of which I oppose that, and gay movements wanting to impose their agenda on other people's children who are not gay at school, and say now we no longer have male and female. I've got lots of opinion on that, but I'll reserve them for now. But for me, generally, I don't recognize gay movements. As a gay individual, we cool.
Speaking on movements, and you say that they never played an active role in the apartheid or in any worthy, struggle except for promoting their own selves. Wouldn't you say, Ike, that another person who's part of the movement would argue that they have been suppressed already by society and furthermore by even the law? How then were they supposed to erupt or form as a movement if they were even illegal in the constitution? Wasn't marriage for gay people in South Africa outlawed for a very long time? So please just answer that and let us know what you think
So
of
when you
marriage
say
as a
they were
whole.
oppressed by society, what society? I don't remember many gay people being oppressed as a society. For you to be oppressed as a society, you've got to exist first. I am saying during apartheid, they did not exist as gay right movements. They came after the fact. After we have been bloodied, after we've lost soldiers on the ground, after students were killed, and then they came after the fact and say, remember guys, I'm here, gay, wedding, whatever, coming on that note. Then we say, that's an opportunistic take. You cannot, after we've lost so much and you come and say, remember me guys, but I'm gay and proud. Be proud even when we're facing bigger monsters, bigger challenges. That's why I'm saying we've got so many challenges, today in our society. What is the gay rights movement's view on those challenges? You'll never hear them. Access in the media, you'll never hear them. They're just there. They just all of a sudden and then make noise and say we've been discriminated. But when it comes to access, opening up the space, you'll never hear them. In the judiciary, you never hear them. When we say, black practitioners are being discriminated, they're not getting the necessary legal work on, they're not being accelerated into higher position, you never hear them. But they will come in by back door and say, guys, here's my agenda, implement my agenda. You need to fight, you need to contest the terrain so that you can say, yeah, I also fought. We will recognize you as a movement and say, we've seen you. But if you come as individual, I recognize you as individual. We cannot be fighting here. The next thing we say, guys, remember, I'm a Buddhist. You didn't come join us as a Buddhist. You join us as individual if you were there. So you cannot impose your agenda. Imagine we start a campaign. We're saying we're going to form a basketball team. Let us find money, to establish this basketball team or a league. And then after we've found funding, you come and say, guys, but what about netball? No, that is pushing your issues by back door. Tell us from the inception that I'm for netball. Then I will understand you. When it's still tough, not when we have, the fruits, then you want to tap in.
That makes a lot of sense, Ike. That makes a lot of sense, Ike. A lot of people, religious leaders all around the world say that homosexualism is a curse, Some even blame the idea that these children were had out of wedlock. They say that children out of marriage are cursed. What's your opinion on that?
Look, that is nonsense. Africans never discriminated against gay people. There's no history of homophobia before we met the Europeans. And to tell children that they are born out of wedlocks, it is wrong, because all children are supposed to be loved by God if you believe in God. And the idea of marriage, it's man-made. I don't remember God coming from the sky and saying, you shall marry. It's man-made. Men who wrote into the Bible. The Bible was written by men. It was all altered so many times, by Constantine, in Council of Ephesians, in Council of Constantinople, in Council of Antioch. The Bible has been altered by men, bishops sitting down and say, we're going to force this, on the people. So for me, to say that it is sin, I wouldn't go that far, because for you to say it is sin, it means you must have spoken to God and God told you that. So I cannot take another man's word who says, thou shalt not, because I spoke to the Lord and the Lord said. No one has seen God. It is man-made. It's our perception. For me, I don't discriminate people because they are gay, but I'm robust. I question them, and I don't discriminate you know, children and saying they're illegitimate. And rightfully so, our laws, they no longer have, I believe, that thing of illegitimate children born out of wedlocks, because they took the position that all children are special, are loved by God, so therefore they are not legitimate. To say that a child is legitimate, you know, every child is legit. You're here, you're a person in front of the law, therefore you're legit, you've got rights. But if you say a child has legitimacy on his shoulder or is illegitimate, it means that person, it does not exist in terms of the law, because legit means legal. So all children are legal and therefore they are legitimate.
Like you seem to have a wide problem with, religion and everything. You say that you don't believe in laws being imposed upon you by people who claim to have heard from the Lord. Yet, you are known to, support African spiritualism, such as Amadlozi, ancestors, and all of this. Should someone say, Iglos Lako has told you or has given you this law, would you not follow it?
Let me say this. African people don't worship ancestors. They take guidance from those who've lived before them. As much as you listen to your parents in the living years when they were still alive, African people don't throw their people away simply because they're no longer there. I can tell you, my parents don't drink alcohol. I grew up not drinking alcohol. I would not drink alcohol after they're all gone, because I'm taking guidance from them now. I'll take guidance from them then when they are dead or have passed. And we don't throw ours away. Same way as Jewish people don't throw theirs away, like they don't throw Abraham away, they don't throw Moses away. They don't throw their ancestors away, they don't throw Muhammad away. It's only African people who are forced to turn against their own. And then you ask, what is Jacob? Isn't he an ancestor of another tribe, another nationality? You're going to embrace another nationality's ancestors, but curse your own. And I believe in God. African spirituality believes in God. You cannot be atheist as an African. It's a foreign concept, being African and atheist. Yeah, Africans were never atheists. I'm not saying everybody believes in God, but in a nutshell, we Africans, we are always in line with nature. We don't fight nature. We don't conquer nature like Europeans. Europeans are always going against nature. They say you must tame nature, you must conquer nature, you must conquer the sky. Then we live in harmony with nature. If the river is flowing from left, we don't take the river to the right, like Europeans have done. And my belief in God is based, or my faith in God is based on belief. I cannot prove it. It's belief, because I believe that the world and the universe is too orderly for me to say that there is no God or a supernatural. But it's based on belief. Religion is something else. It's man-made. All religions are man-made. And I can tell you, as a matter of fact, without Africa, there is no major religions of the world. There is no Hinduism. There is no Judaism. There is no Buddhism. There's this one they practice in Japan. There is no Christianity. There is no major religion of the world, because all of them, they've got similar concept. Messiah, born out of the virgin, died on the cross, like, be it, Hercules, be it Odysseus, they're all the same, because they have stolen Heru, they have stolen Horus. That's where they were stolen. All these religious books, from Genesis to Revelation, the Quran, the Torah, they were stolen from Africa. So without black people, there is no religion. It is Africa who first gave the world the idea and the concept of God. Trinity came from Pharaoh Echnotep. When you combine all these gods, he says, I'm going to make them one. And prior to that, they had lots of gods, god of rain, god of fertility, all these things, the Easter, god Esther, stolen from Africa. Ptah, making men out of clay. And then they later said it's Adam. the 12 tribes, all these things, they're not new concepts. Unfortunately, when we were colonized, they took everything and remixed it, and brought it back to us. And you don't even realize that all these concepts are ours. The idea of Jesus was Serapis.
So I like that, Ike. You saying that they were practicing globalism before globalism was globalism. Is that true?
When you're talking globalization, you're now moving into something else. I'm not sure whether you're entering into the economic space, but globalization, maybe it's mirrored against nationalism. Is it nationalism? Almost said nationalization. Globalization. Africans were always global. We always globetrotters, because you can find the Khoisan in Britain. The earlier Britons were black. The earlier Russians were black. The earlier Germans were black. We were there long before there was Europe. The earlier Greeks, the earlier Indians, they were black. The earlier Americans, not the so-called Red Indians that you see. These are Spanish people, a mixture of Mexicans and Chinese. But the first people to land in America are people of Mali, Ethiopia. That's why they could trace them now. You must check the Omaleks, where they find huge sculptures of African people with African features, the Mexicans' pyramids, But unfortunately, the world conspire against us all the time. Whenever there's civilization found, they say, no, it is the Mayans. No, it's not you. It did not build pyramids. They were built by aliens, because they always try, to nullify us, our existence. I hear people looking for African footprints in the Bible. You will not find them. You'll find the man carrying Jesus' cross and say, you're supposed to be a servant, because the Bible was stolen from us. The 10 Commandments, there were 42 negative confessions, but Christianity took 10. When ISIS says, I have not killed, I have not committed adultery, I have not, stolen, when she was pleading that they raise Osiris, and they raised Osiris, but one body part was missing, 14 body parts, were missing, and eventually they were put together by that prayer. ISIS praying in Egypt, in the land, saying, please bring back my mate. Then the penis was left behind because it was eaten by the crocodile. That's where the story of Immaculate Conception came in. When Osiris was lying down, and Isis took the form of a bird, and he flew on top of the sexual organs, and the sperm jumped out of Osiris into Isis. That Immaculate Conception. It's a myth. It's a mythological tale, like the story of the floods. The Babylon, they have the Gilgamesh epic, but there's a story that is older than that in Egypt, of the floods of Noah. All these stories, they are taken, written in a typological fashion. The Bible is allegory. It's written in allegory. Only African people who believe that there was a person called Moses in history. The Bible is not history, it is literature. Unfortunately, white people know this fact. But Africans, they say Jesus lives. When you say Jesus lives in your heart, I can accept that. But when you say it as a fact, then we have a problem, because even the concept of Jews, there are no people called Jews. They've never existed. Even these so-called Jews, I call them Jewish. They were in Bosnia. They came out from the carcass of the mountains, 500 AD. They coined this thing, stealing our image, stealing our legacy. And under their king Bulan, they adopted this Christianity.
But then, where is the evidence to prove this? What gives you the idea that these African mythologies came before the Bible? And is it impossible to assume, please hold on, sir, is it impossible to assume that perhaps these so-called mythologies that are African that you are quoting were done after the Bible, and in fact stole the storyline of the Bible?
Rome used to say that, and said, the earlier writers of Rome, they used to say, no, these African stories, they were written before by the devil, so that the devil, the devil wrote them earlier. Then they realized that that story did not hold. They started on a disinformation campaign where they started destroying books. If you know of the Dead Sea Scrolls, some of the books were written on animal skins. They were hidden in caves, inside caves, and Rome went all over, the world, taking books, destroying them. There's a man called, I forgot is a Libyan, I'll remember now, a Libyan bishop. When they were busy with that process of canonification in 325 AD, I think it's Arius, something like that. Arius kept on saying, I will not accept this Bible because I know where it comes from. These books have been in existence, they've been passed on orally, and some of them have been written on stone, some have been written on paper, because African people are the first people to write on paper. That's why you've got your Assis papyrus. They're the first people to come up with written material long before there was Europe. Even the Khoisan, they were writing their stories. So Rome had to destroy that information, had to destroy that memory. So those books are there. You go to Egypt today, you'll find these stories that are old. Our civilization is still there. You cannot find the Garden of Nebuchadnezzar. You cannot find Apollo. All their civilization, their wonders of the world is imaginary. Otherwise, you can still find it. You go to Sudan, you go to Ethiopia. These are the churches. Here are the writings that are old. Europeans themselves, they come and say these are dated, longer. The Sphinx is 40,000 years BC. They themselves, they admit that. And they found books such as the Egyptian Book of the Dead, where they find all these stories, about the major religions, the story of Jesus, the story of Moses. And there's a guy called John G. Jackson. They tried to sabotage that book. He wrote Stolen Legacy, Egyptian Philosophy. He says Greek philosophy is Egyptian stolen philosophy, where they were trying to hide where the likes of Pythagoras land, the likes of Plato, Aristotle, and this other one, Socrates. They stole from Africa. Aristotle's being one of the last, using Alexander the Greek to steal in Alexander library, and everything was reproduced under their names. So African people, they still have to discover how great they are. That's why I'm a scholar and a preacher of this, that you must remember who we are. We must go back, and remember that we are not fakes. Everything that they told us, is stolen from us. If there's any person who can claim to be a Jew, it's us. If it's any person who can claim to be a chosen nation, it's us. It cannot be that Johnny came late, who came from the Caucasus of the mountains, or Caucasus Mountains recently, says, I'm the chosen. Where was this meeting where the people were chosen and were left behind? And the story is self-corroboratory. The one who said he was chosen, he cannot come up with verifiable information or a verifiable source beside his brother saying, yes, he was chosen. And we were here first. We were chosen to be here first.
That we can all agree with. And then with the migration of time, everybody migrated, bringing us back to globalism. Now, I'd like us to go to more modern day globalism, such as the World Trade Organization. Ike, tell us more about that. The UN as well. We may include as well the IMF.
There's no such thing as globalization in the modern day. Globalization in the modern day, it's imperialism. It's the worst. America trying to impose its will on weaker nations. And tomorrow it's China trying to impose their agenda on the rest of the world and say, adopt our policies, in line with the globe. When they say the globe, they mean them. We must agree with them. If we were in a globalization, it means we'll also have our contribution, we'll have our footprint in the globe. But unfortunately, African leaders, they go to the global platform to adopt other people's agendas. They don't bring theirs there. So you cannot go into a global platform with no local agenda. You must have a local content to say, listen, guys, as much as we've come together here, this is what I have from Africa. I want it implemented. It advances you, but we are running after everyone from Asia to West. We don't prioritize ourselves. We must push ourselves. There's no such thing as globalization. If in Africa there are wars, coup d'etats, who gets affected? If the rand, the Zim dollar, Botswana pula crashes, is America affected? But if America dollar or the American dollar crashes, we catch the storm. If the Chinese, the Asian markets react, we catch the storm. Therefore, we are not in a global platform. Now we are buying everything from China. And we are told that is a globalization. It's a Chinese dragon taking over from the American dream or American imperialism in Britain and France. There's no such thing as globalization. We need to prioritize ourselves and push our agenda.
Right.
That's that.
Thank you so much, Ike, for coming into this interview session. And until next time.
Yeah, I forgot to mention something before we close, but unfortunately, my last word will be that, in summary, there are consequences in life. As much as people hide themselves behind feminism, globalization, capitalism, all the isms of this world, there are consequences. You do drugs, there are consequences. You have children outside a steady relationship, there are consequences. Consequences may be bad, may be good. You have children while you are still at school, there are consequences, but we live in a world of gray area where even a loser is told that he's done well. I understand that. Sometimes you got to uplift, those left behind. But in the real world, there are winners and losers. But at school, even the child, got zero, is given awards and say, what, endurance and all that. It's good. It's a gray area. But in the real world, there are consequences. Unfortunately, people are not prepared to take on the consequences or accept the consequences. We're taught that we can get everything that we want. Women and children can waste their youth, in nightclubs, they can get it all. But the value decreases. You abuse your body, you decrease. Men and women, you go around drinking, you get illnesses, you lose time. When other nationalities, they're doing something of substance with their lives. African people, they waste their years drinking alcohol, having multiple sex partners, then they have kids, and then you wonder why certain consequences follow you. Sometimes other people are lucky. It turns out in their favor, but not everyone is so lucky. But it is important, in all this globalization, feminism, because we live in a liberal world where everything is justifiable, that I can have many sexual partners and, I can have many mistakes in life. Sometimes you just have one strike and you're out. There's a thin line between making it and not making it. Sometimes you can make it when it's late, in life, because you've learned from your experience, but very few people make it. There's a thin line between making it and not making it. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ike, and until next time.